What's up, guys? What's going on? Welcome to the Sober Black Girls Club podcast. I am your host, J. Nicole, in the building with our co-host, Katie. Katie, what's up?
Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up?
We are back. Okay. We are back here, starting with our first official episode because we do have the trailer for you guys, kind of giving you a little intro into what the podcast is going to be about and what you can expect today. Yeah, we're going to get into it. Katie, what are we going to be talking to them about today?
All right, so today's episode is titled Let's Be Honest. And the inspiration, the motivation behind the episode is I feel like I want to touch on some of the stories that made us really decide to get sober, to focus on sobriety, to focus on whatever type of healing journey that we both were on. And I thought about this topic because a lot of times when I speak, I often speak about childhood trauma and white supremacy and racism. And these are common things that a lot of Black folk, people of color face. However, sometimes we're always on the move that we just don't have that moment to sit down and think about things that are happening, that affect the way that our values and things we believe in. And usually for a lot of people, I know myself, there were usually events that had happened before I decided to get sober that made me sit and think about who I was and my values and past experiences and why I wanted to focus on my healing and childhood trauma and et cetera, society and racism, white supremacy, etc. And I want to share the stories today. What was the story? What was the event that made us sit down and be can we curse on YouTube? I don't know. Can we curse? I curse I used to curse all the time on our last podcast, but I don't know if we can curse. Or
do whatever you want to do. So it's our podcast. Right, so whatever you feel most comfortable doing, go for it.
If y'all know, I curse like a sailor. One, I'm from New York, and two, I'm an attorney, so I'm stay cursing, but I'm gonna try to minimize it. But if a curse word does pop out, oh well, forgive me and move on. All right, so I think that, so I'm speaking we can talk about the event that made us sit down and be bitch, you need to stop fucking drinking. You need to sit your ass down.
That went real smooth, right, guys? That was fast. I'm gonna do my best to make sure that no curse word pops out, and if it slips out, then oh well. And you know what? Because what was that drinking story that made you sit down and be like, man?
Well, that was kind of planned. That's what made me saying that was what made me give the disclaimer. But that's the last curse word of the episode. Well, I'll try, but yeah, I was thinking that we can touch on some stories. So do you have that story that made you just be yeah, I gotta stop drinking?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a story, but the crazy part is I didn't stop drinking after that story, even though I was like, God, I will never do this again. I'm not, if I could just get through this, I'm not, no, listen, I was 19 at the time, feeling myself, hanging out with some friends at my home. So this is important for context. We're hanging out at my home, not my own home. I was 19. I didn't live on my own, at my grandmother's house, drinking. And I actually had Bacardi Limon straight out the bottle, no chaser. And that was the kind of champ I was, allegedly a champ. And so I'm drinking. And my friends leave. And they're like, hey, we're going to take your keys so that you don't drive. Thank you, responsible friends. That was a great thing for you to do. I get angry. I was an angry drinker. I would just get angry and start just being out of control. So I get mad at that. And I go to my grandma's room and I say, oh, grandma, I need to borrow your car. Mind you, she's asleep. I take her keys and I remember saying, snatchies. And I took her keys. So now I'm taking her car to drive and go and try to find these friends who have my keys. So I'm driving. I get to the town where they are, the next town over. I remember, because again, now we're going to get to how intoxicated I was, but I remember driving. I get kind of near my friend's street, cop car right behind me. And I just remember pulling over. And this is really all I can remember. The only reason why I know everything that happened is because of the police report. Once I got that, I was able to read what happened. So it was Miss Jones never once walked foot and toe, had to grasp the officer for support, Like, can you imagine doing like a sobriety test on the road and like, you're like, oh, sorry, can you help me? Can you help me stand up? So I that happened. Apparently the reason why he pulled me over was because when I was driving, I wasn't swerving or anything, but there was a parked car and my mirror hit their mirror, but I just kept going. So like, I don't remember that happening, but I just kept going. So that was alarming to him. Like, okay, why would that can happen on a small street, but why would you just keep going? So that's why I got pulled over. He asked me what I was drinking. I said 2 to 3 beers at a friend's house. Mind you, I just told you that I was drinking Bacardi. So I get arrested. And I remember it being in the backseat of a police car. And like, I don't know if anyone's ever been in the backseat of a police car. If you haven't, I hope you never do this. But the seats are like, they were like plastic or something. So when we turned around the back of the police station, it's like a bend. And I remember sliding and like hitting the side of the door. And then I woke up like, oh no, I'm an upstanding individual. No, I'm a basketball player. Like, I started pleading my case about why I don't need to be in the back of this police car, even though I was drunk and got myself here.
Yeah.
Fast forward the story. In the police station, I get arrested. I get a DUI. My blood alcohol level was 0.19. I was underage. So they let me actually, believe it or not, they let me call someone. I called my friend's mom, who was kind of like a little free living, so she wasn't gonna be mad. But she also didn't drive, so the cop took me to her house. And I wake up in the morning and I see all of these tickets on the side of me, and I didn't remember anything that happened. I woke up like, yo, these tickets say my name. It's like reckless driving, this, all this stuff. So everything started kind of coming back to me. My grandma's freaking out. She doesn't know where a car is. They don't know where I am. I told my friend not to tell them where I was. I was so scared to tell my family. Anyway, all of that happened. My license got suspended for a year. I got a DUI, and thankfully I didn't hurt anybody. I know we're kind of like, joking, putting a little humor to it, because when I read the police report, it was pretty wild. It's a serious thing, and I don't think drunk driving is funny, but your girl was out of control. And that happened when I was 19. I didn't get sober till I was 23. So I felt though that I was going to stop. I tried to like start going to like meetings, like getting like coins and doing all this stuff like that, but it didn't last long, and I kept drinking. So it's on you. It's on you now.
But what I always say, I really admire that you got sober so young. I mean, I think any time is a great time to get sober, but I feel like a lot of times people can just attribute like reckless drinking to like being young. Like, well, you're supposed to do that, but it's like, really, no, you're not supposed to do that.
I did do that. I felt like everybody's drinking. We're turning up. Like, I played basketball in college, so it's like we're drinking if we win, we drink if we lose. Like, we're drinking. So that was definitely a hard thing to distinguish. Like, do I have a problem? Yeah. Or they just can't hang? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I really admire that. And when you said the prayer, OMG, I feel like everyone can relate to begging God for this one last time.
Just one.
I will never do this again if you get me to this one last event. Girl, I know God is sick of me, sick of me, sick of me, sick of me. Well, I'm going to share my story, but before I share my story, before I begin, I want to say that I have countless of stories. And I thought that this episode is really important because I know a lot of people see this like really mature, and I get it. I'm this mature, this enlightened, this like girl, when they hear me talk and they hear me on these like podcasts or social media, I have stories for days where y'all would be like, what the hell?
We're gonna get to them. We got a long road, so don't think you're gonna escape that.
Yeah, I just want to let you know I've been terminated from jobs. I've been definitely engaged in some risky, embarrassing behavior. I've done it really all. And I think it's important for folks to see like the side of us. Like, I know you run another podcast, you have your own platform, and people can just get stuck in this like one view of just like, oh my gosh, I just want to be like Jake and Nicole, so like just so enlightened and healed, and yeah, we're here, but it took some time,
a lot of time.
It took events, it took a lot of crying and begging God to give us one more chance. But the story I want to share is, I think this happened in like 2019, I believe. 2019. Yes. So at this time, I kind of conceded that I had a drinking problem, but I still really didn't understand what I was going through because, again, I've always just thought it was impossible. Like, I never could see, like, if you gave me what do you call it? A future telling ball. What do you call those balls? Is it future telling ball? It is, right? What are those balls that you tell the future in, right? And you're like, oh, you're going to have an addiction. I would look at you and be like, you're a joke. Goodbye. So at this point, I kind of conceded that I did, but I didn't know a lot about like addiction and how to handle what I was going through. No one I was around knew what to do. So I was very depressed at this time. I was still drinking. Maybe like 2-3 days of like sobriety and then drinking again, relapsing. So again, just not knowing what to do. And I remember being very depressed and I felt like alcohol wasn't doing it anymore, where I needed something else to like basically depend on, because I was very codependent on people, things, and places. And at this time, I had kind of like really ruined a lot of my relationships with like a lot of like my some romantic partners, maybe less romantic, but like what do you call them, flings, basically people who I could confide in and like have like, I don't know, romantic and flingy moments with. I kind of like ruined all those relationships. So I took my ass to where Tinder, which was a mistake, a big mistake. I took my ass to Tinder and I remember like we go to Tinder for like 2 weeks and like, hey, this is hell. This is like hell, a waste of time. And then finally I connected, like I matched with this person. It was very good vibes. I was like, all right, fine. I'm gonna go and hang out with this person in Harlem. So I went to Harlem, we had our date, and it was like going really, really well. I was drinking on the date, you know, we got some tacos. And then the person was like, do you want to come over? And I was like, yeah, sure, I do. Like, why not, right? It was good vibes all around. So I went over. When I tell you how I ended up staying at this person's apartment for a month, literally cohabitated with someone that I just met off of a Tinder, which is really one, it's funny, but it's really dangerous because what the hell? I didn't know what this person's sexual medical history was. I didn't know really anything about this person until we met that day. So I ended up staying there, literally playing house, like when I say like lesbians are so typical and just what's that there's something, what is it, a myth or stereotype, which I never used to believe in it because I'm very like selective and picky, so I used to be like, no, that just happened to me, but it actually did happen. And I remember like on the 30th and 31st day, and at this time I was working at a law firm in Brooklyn, New York, and I remember like on the 31st day, I went to work and I actually went to work drunk. Like I was literally like the whole time being there for like 30 days, I was like in and out of like just drinking, doing certain drugs. I was really escaping. Like I didn't want to face the reality of like my life. And basically what my life consisted of was going to work, which I was definitely calling out nonstop, like a lot. And when I went back to their apartment in Harlem, eating, drinking, and you know, drugging and having sex. And that was it. Like that was it for like 30, 31 days. And I remember on the 31st day, like I did lose my job. Like that was one of another job that I was due to my drinking. And I was like, I cannot live like this anymore. Like I don't know what's going on, but I cannot live like this anymore and something has to change. And I remember like the next day I literally just checked in, took my ass to rehab because I just, and I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I couldn't go home. I just knew something needed to change. So yeah, that's you know, that's my let's be honest story of like that definitely did happen, and that's something that definitely made me reconsider a lot, like, you know, my life and like the things that I thought were important and how did I get here and what's going on. So yeah, girl.
Woo. So you like tacos, you like Tinder.
I don't like Tinder, actually. I do not like Tinder.
Okay. Wow, thank you for sharing that. That is definitely considered vulnerable and definitely showing people a different side of you. But people can relate. I know there's somebody out there listening to this like, girl, I'm leaving my Tinder date's house right now. I ain't been here for a month, but I've been here a couple of days too long. So I already know people can definitely relate to that. Was the person that you were cohabitating with like heavy into drinking and drugs and all that too?
No, and honestly, that's such a good question. No, they weren't. And I felt like a lot of people, a lot of my partners in the past, they would always condone like my drinking and like drugging. Like they never had a problem with it. I never dated someone who abused substances. Usually a lot of people who I dated were very reserved and actually didn't like partake. Like I remember those 30 days, it was just like, oh yeah, can we call the drug dealer? Like, can we go to a liquor store? It was always like, let's do, like, I need to do this. And it's so crazy when I think about it. Like when I went to rehab, I didn't tell anyone. You can't have your phone, so no one knew I was in rehab. Not even my parents knew I was in rehab. No one knew I was in rehab. I didn't tell anyone, and this person was like blowing up my phone, and that just shows you like just, I know it's supposed to be lighthearted, but how selfish like we can be when we're like in our, if, I don't know, like not everyone who abuses substances is an addiction, but I definitely at that moment was experiencing a full-blown addiction. And it just shows you how selfish we can be, because literally when I think about how like, oh, maybe that's why my dating life is so horrible now, karma. So basically imagine like spending like 30 days with someone, right? Even though it was like it was a lot, like we just met, and then the person goes to work, something that they've been doing for the past 30 days, and you don't speak to them ever again. Like, you know, that's really, it's actually really messed up.
Spoke to them since then, since you just jetted to rehab?
So no, so when I came back, I got my phone and I had called them, and I didn't tell them what I had went. I just told them that something had happened and I didn't want to speak about it. And then at that time, you know, I think I was like 31 days sober. I had like some sober time. You know, clearly I relapsed after that, like shortly after that. But at that time I was like in rehab for like maybe 21, 28 days. And I was feeling very, you know, a lot of people when we get sober, I didn't want anyone touching me. I didn't want to be around anyone. Again, a lot of my sexual experiences has been with me being drunk or being high. This me and my experience with this person was no different. Hello, like literally we were like smoking and drinking the first time we met, like the first day that we met. So I couldn't see myself going back there and actually pursuing a relationship. It was like, I'm trying to figure out my life. Like this is, I'm a mess. Like, I don't know, like, you know, at that time I wasn't under any influence. A lot of my emotions, a lot of my feelings and thoughts were so raw and like so in my face. I couldn't be trekking to Harlem to meet someone who I met on 10, like, no, like, you know, so it had to end. And, you know, ended up getting cursed out and blocked on all social media platforms. And it was very valid. But again, it just goes to show like how kind of like, yeah, until now talking about it and realize like how, yeah, that was messed up on my part. Even though I was going through something that was a little bit beyond my control at that time, it was pretty messed up. But yeah, that was the situation that made me be like, yeah, girl, you got to get your life together and just stop drinking.
Yeah, I never really considered drinking like that being selfish until I was starting in like AA and someone was telling me about it, which I never finished the 12 steps, but that's another conversation for another day. But I remember one of the sponsors or someone that was speaker or whatever was saying like, oh, we're so selfish. And I'm like, how is this selfish? What do you mean? I'm just like, you know, I just live my life. That's selfish in itself, right? I guess to think like, why would you dare say I'm being selfish? I'm just, you know, trying to live it up. But that's completely like a true thing. And like you said, we want to keep it lighthearted, but at the same time, we also want to show the realities. And if we can kind of share an exchange here or there, like it is what it is. But we're going to have revelations. I learned with podcasting, you're talking and we're learning stuff on the fly about each other or just life in itself. So that's no big deal. Thank you for sharing that. I was going to go in a different direction, but I think one thing that I do want to say too, as far as the let's be honest, is I remember someone saying to me, I can't wait for you to go to sleep just so that you can wake up and like be yourself. And that's just like stuck with me for so long. It was someone that I was dating and I'm like, what do you mean? And like, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like 1 minute you're like fun and cool. And then the next minute is like, who is this person? And I just didn't see it that way because I was like a blackout drinker. So like a lot of the parts would just be real, whatever, I guess, absent. And then when I would remember it, it's like, man, like that's a terrible situation. So those are our let's be honest. Do you want to go back to back, or do you want me to add something into it, or where you want to kind of go from here?
Yeah, I actually remember you saying that. So, J. Nicole, how we met, I don't know, remember how exactly we met, but I remember I asked you to speak at one of our meetings.
It wasn't Tinder. It wasn't Tinder and tacos.
No, it wasn't Tinder. I haven't been on Tinder since like 2018, 19. I do not use Tinder anymore. I don't, well, let me not lie and say I don't use dating apps anymore, but if I do use a dating app, it definitely ain't Tinder. But no, we met through like the sober platform ish. I don't know. I don't remember, but it was like
I think you reached out to me about maybe speaking, but how you would have known that I think no, you reached out to me about speaking about grief, but I don't even know if you knew that I was at the time, really.
Yeah, so you shared a little bit of that story. You said something, and you said something about someone saying they couldn't wait for you to even wake up, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually pretty deep. That is so deep. Like a person can be such a great person, like great personality, fun to be around. And then just that one moment up. And then with drinking, you never know what's this gonna be like. Cause let's be real. There's some moments where we were drinking and we were like the life of the party, everything was good, everything was fun. Like I can recall like the moments of joy and happiness and community. But that wasn't always the case. And that's the thing with alcohol. Alcohol and people who abuse it, like you don't know what side you're going to get. So I can definitely relate to that. And I do have one more story, but I think we can go back to you because I already shared my first story. So we can hear another one of your stories and then come back to me.
Oh man, I have so many stories. It's crazy. I think one that's kind of like, it's not really funny, but it is kind of funny. So we'll lighten it up a little bit. So I had been out with my friends at a party, and my one friend, his mom was like not home a lot, and so we were having a party at his house. This was in high school, actually. We're having a party at his house, and we're drinking. I must have been a junior or a senior because I had my license and I had a car, and so I'm drunk at this time. I mean, I had a guy in my class, and I don't even know why this happened, but he literally, I remember him taking a body shots off of me. And I was like, what's a body shot? They're like, oh, he's going to just like pour the shot and then like has to drink it. And I'm like, okay, like just crazy. It was that kind of night. I triple kissed with some people that night, like literally triple kissing, like 3 people kissing at the same time. Again, this is a completely different version of myself that I don't think anyone in the social world has ever heard. So it's probably like, oh my God. But yeah, it turned up. And I remember saying to my friends, like, oh, I have to, like, I was getting in my car. Again, they were like, no, like, we don't want you to drive. Different group of friends, but same angle. And they're like, no, we don't want you to drive. I'm like, no. I'm just moving my car a little bit, like trying to move it up. Man, I just drove off. I literally drove all the way home. So my friends started like panicking. So then my one friend, he got in his car. The one friend he jumped in the car with me as I was like starting to pull off because he thought I was just fixing my car, but I started to drive and he got in. So he's in my car, but I'm going to my house. So I don't know where he's going to go. So my other friend follows us and I pull into the driveway and they're like calling my house phone. And so like my mom was like thinking it's kind of weird that I just came in, you can hear the door, but like now I'm not answering the phone. Like that's kind of strange. So then she comes down and like finds me completely intoxicated, so drunk. And it's like something maybe like 4 a.m. at this point. And so she's like, oh, like you better be ready. Like you're going to church, blah, 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 blah. Man, I remember sitting in church. You remember those jackets? The people still wear them now. It's like a leather jacket, but like the fur. I had a brown leather jacket with the white fur. I'm sitting in church with that jacket on, would not take it off, so drunk and irritated in church, just sitting there like this the whole time. Like, wow, I'm really drunk in church. I'm not taking this jacket off. I'm so mad at my mom. She's like, you can't drive, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the PS of that story was I was drinking young. I was so embarrassed to have to go to church like that. I was in church, drunk, smelled like alcohol, and looked like I just left a party.
Wait. So your mom found you the first day she took you to church?
No. She didn't take me to church like right at that moment. It was like 4 a.m. Church is in the morning. So
Okay.
I have to go, but being out that late, you're still drunk in like 3 hours from now.
Oh, okay, got it.
Just from last night in me, but she was trying to like punish me and bring me there so that I couldn't like get away with this or whatever. But I'm like, okay, so yeah, that's pretty embarrassing to say that I've been drunk at church.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I could definitely imagine that. I feel like I mean, if you're watching this, please do not drink and drive. I'm not gonna lecture J. Nicole because clearly she's been sober for like a decade and a half and like 28 years. How long have you been sober? 13 years, I believe.
13 years.
13 years. So I don't need to lecture J. Nicole, but one thing I do
obviously I didn't learn.
No, I don't. But one thing I do hate is people who drink and drive. And I know people be like, Katie, shut up. But I seriously do hate it. I just feel like, and I know we're supposed to be light, but I have to say this. I just feel like,
say it.
Let our drinking be our problem, right? I don't want to ever be responsible for physically hurting another person because of my decision. And eventually, the sensation of just the physical manifestation of addiction, I get it. Sometimes people do feel like it's not a decision, and I totally support all views, but I just don't want to be responsible for like my actions of drinking. I don't want my drinking to affect anyone else. Like, it's very bad enough that my drinking was like ruining my life. It's very bad enough that drinking does ruin, the drinker's life. It's like, let's keep the misery here. Like, let's not push it on another person that has nothing to do with anything. So if you're watching this, please do not drink and drive. Call it Uber, Lyft. J. Nicole looks very young. I'm not gonna make that joke.
Where's the shade going now? Where's the shade going now? He didn't have Uber and Lyft.
No, J. Nicole looks very young, but I don't think Uber was a thing when you were like in college, right? Yeah. No. So that's, I'm not gonna try to put too much shade, but okay. So all right, we can give that a pass. But for y'all watching this, and if you are currently experiencing some type of like addiction, drinking problem, or not, it doesn't matter. Just don't drink and drive. This is not only to people who are maybe experiencing a drinking problem or addiction. Don't drink and drive. Like,
don't drink and drive. Don't get high and drive. Don't do any of it. And that's why I'm glad you're saying that, because I'm sharing these stories. Like, this is hindsight now. I wouldn't do anything. You're not getting in my car if you have weed on you. You're not doing nothing. I'm so straight edge, and it's like not even fun. It's not funny. It's not fun or funny. It's like I'm so like serious. But to your point, that's why I'm saying when she said about being selfish, I'm like, being selfish, but that's the definition of being selfish, not only for strangers and random people and people who have lost their lives or family members based on DUIs, but also for my own family as well. Like, I'm constantly doing this and not thinking like, wow, if I crash this car out and something really bad happens, that's my mom that's got to bury me. That's my people that have to do this because I made an irresponsible decision. Very irresponsible. I co-sign what you're saying. It is a serious thing, and you guys are just getting to know us both in this way, so you'll catch the vibe and know kind of how we are. There's some playfulness, some joyfulness in it, but at the end of the day, like, we know sobriety is a serious thing. We know that drinking and addiction is a serious thing. So like Katie said, hell no to the drinking and driving or drugging and driving. Don't do it.
Yeah, please just don't do it. Don't do it. And another thing I'm thinking about is like how you said like you were triple kissing. Yo, when I think about how much life has changed pre and we're still in COVID, but pandemic, we used to kiss people we didn't know. We used to drink out of people's cups, just do all these nasty things. And when you said that, I was like, I could never imagine triple kissing someone today.
No, I couldn't imagine doing that. Pre-pandemic, current pandemic, but it was a real thing that happened, and people saw it and they knew, so I could never really hide from that. But it's like, that is just disgusting anyway. Like, why would someone do that? But I wasn't sober, so a sober person maybe wouldn't have done it, depending on how freaky they are. Maybe they would, but I'm not.
Like, that's nasty. Like, all that germs, disgusting, grossness, ill, yuck.
Katie has been throwing shade at me. She's physically throwing it right now.
I'm throwing tomatoes. Boo, boo, boo. No, I'm joking. but no, I'm not judging you. I'm just thinking about. I would never do that. But I just think in the past, like we were just so gross. We just did things that was so myself included. Like ew. Like I wouldn't even make out with anyone now without like knowing. I'm sorry, without knowing just certain things. It's just like you don't know what. Like it's just germs. Yuckiness.
You know, that's the same thing too. Like when people get sober, or they said like, say if you get sober and then you relapse, this is a whole nother conversation, maybe we shouldn't go here, but it's kind of like when you have certain knowledge, it's harder to enjoy what you used to enjoy. So even if you do relapse, and from my experience, it's still not the same kind of drink. Like you enjoy the drink as much because it's like, dang, like life was better 3 days ago, but you know, here I am knowing that I shouldn't do this versus before even feeling what that's like. But we'll save that conversation for another day. Before we get out of here, let's go back to your last story to wrap up this first episode of Sober Black Girls podcast.
Yeah. Girl, that's a really good point. But yeah, you're right. We should save that for another. Because that's something I always tell people. Like every relapse is a different experience. And like, you're not going to tell me that you had this amount of time sober and your drink back or your return drink makes you feel as if like you were 16 again. Like F out of here. I do not believe that. Like it doesn't feel good. Like you know what you're doing as well. It feels bad. And that's why I always say like every relapse is a space and experience to learn and build off of. Like you're not the same person you were when you first started this journey. Just be happy for growth and opportunity and another chance to like change. But anyways, yeah, we can leave that for another episode, another time. Honestly, Jay, I feel like your stories are way better. I should say way better than mine because they involve driving and drinking.
Meeting someone for tacos and then never going back home for 30 days and then going to work and ghosting them for 30 days with no phone is better than what I talked about. Oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, maybe it's just your storytelling skills. I just feel like your stories just sound a lot better. But and I'm not saying drunk driving is a good thing, but the storytelling, the effects, you know, the plot, the characters are on point. All right, I appreciate that. But all right, so this story,
I feel like your stories are way more animated, way better. So really, what we're saying is the audience, you guys are getting the best of the best. Like we're giving you the best that we can, and we're just starting. So yeah, stay tuned.
All right. So this event is actually what literally after this night I created like the blog Sober Blockers Club. So before Sober Blockers Club is what it was now. It was just a blog where I literally thought that like me getting sober was just me going to be like, you know, like Moesha, like in the Moesha where she would end this thing on her bed. Like today, Dear Diary. Today was
Hakeem was doing this and Kim was like, and I'm so mad.
When I tell you, Jay, how I knew nothing when it came to like addiction or sobriety, I literally thought it was just gonna be a work. Like I decided not to drink anymore. I wasn't gonna drink. But anyways, the night before, that's what we're going into. So the night before was I don't know if it was Halloween, but it was around Halloween time, and I was going to a Halloween party. And actually, I think I'm gonna send you like my costumes. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was a Black Panther, and I was so cute. Like it was just on point. My outfit was on point. I had the fro. Actually, I'm gonna really find that picture, and then we're gonna try to. How good are your editing skills? The J. Nicole editing skills.
You are going to show the costume. You're going to see the costume right here. Wherever that ends up being, you're going to see it. You're going to see it somewhere on the screen. You'll see it right here.
Hopefully I can find it. But yeah, actually you would find it. And sorry. So yeah, so we were going to a Halloween party, and I remember I was driving with my two former friends, and I say former because we're no longer friends. And that maybe that could be another topic for another day. But we were going to a Halloween party, and you know, and again, I was one of those type of people who were like, you never knew what you were gonna get with me. I might drink one night and again be the life of the party, cracking jokes, you know, everything's going well. However, you know, being from New York, I was also one of those types where like, if you looked at me a wrong way, if you bumped me, they might, you know, you know, girls like to tussle a little bit. So certain things might have happened, might have transpired, but we're not gonna go there. Anyway, so we're in Manhattan, we're in New York City, and we're partying. And I remember I was talking to Yes, okay. I was actually dating at that time. Actually, no, I'm about to say. I was dating a cop at that time, and we were like, yeah. So I was with my
Sorry, was
friends.
that a cop?
Yeah. Nah. And so we were in the party, right? Me and my two friends, one girl, one boy, and me and the dude I was dating. He wanted to meet up after the party. He wanted me to meet up with him after the shift, and I was coming from the party, and we were just gonna go to a bar and like drink. And I remember like again, I was like really, really drunk, and I just was just I don't know what about it, but I remember I was in the bathroom. I got into it with this girl in the bathroom. I don't know if she was looking at me the wrong way or she bumped me. Me and her started arguing. And then I was telling my friends who I drove there with that like I'm about to go and meet dude at the bar. And they were like, okay, well, we're leaving soon. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't care. I'm about to go meet dude at the bar. Just wait a couple of minutes. Like, it's not a big deal. Then we ended up getting into a huge argument. Long story short, I ended up going to the bar, hanging out for a little bit, and then found out like my former friends had actually left me. And I lived in like in a totally different borough than like Manhattan. I don't live in Manhattan. I'm not from Manhattan. So I had to basically get on like the ferry and like get on at that time. I don't think was I driving at that time. Oh, I was driving at the time, but I didn't have my car. So we bought one car. And I ended up having, oh my gosh. So I ended up, sorry, I should have said this in the beginning. I know this is everywhere because I'm like, a lot of things are coming to me at once, but I had drove my car to my friend's house and we took her car to the party. So I did have my car, but however, it was in front of my friend's house in the borough that we're from. So I had to like get on the ferry and then get on the bus to her house, and it was like raining. And I remember this is when I decided like I just could not, I really had to be serious with like my sobriety and clearly like I ended up relapsing after that because clearly my sobriety date is February 2020. So like clearly this has happened. I said clearly, like you guys know, this happened in 2018, and I didn't officially become sober until 2020. So I remember like walking, it was like raining, and I remember like just walking from the bus stop to like the girl's house was a really far distance, and I was just crying and just thinking about like how alcohol has played a role in many things. Like here I got into two fights today. I'm walking home at like 3 o'clock. Walking to my friend's house at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, when I went to go meet up with the person I was with at that time, my partner at that time, I was like clearly in a bad mood. He didn't understand why I was in a bad mood. Like he was annoyed. So it was just an overall bad night. And and I just remember just thinking like something like this is just not life. This cannot be life. So I took my car, and you really have great friends. So this is another reason why I was so annoyed that my friends didn't care that I've been drinking and just had no problem with me. Like how was I gonna get home? And even though like my drinking and my actions are mine, I do feel like when you're friends with people, like you should show some basic level of like compassion and understanding. And eventually that even though like we were friends when I did get sober, that contributed to my like not that per se. Now I'm going to other shit, but oh well, y'all gonna hear this. But like just that attitude of that, and that like I don't know, mindset of like friendship that was lacking, like that friendship component, like where your friends took, like your keys and they were telling you not to like I never really had that. And that's eventually just that relationship. That's eventually what ended our relationship. But at that moment, I just felt really bad about myself. I just felt like I had no one who like cared about me, no one who like, I don't know. It was just like my life sucked. And it was that day that I really decided that sobriety was going to be a thing, something that I really focus on, something that I really do. And I feel like I want to clarify something, but I feel like my mind is all over the place. So I'm like, should I just shut up or should I keep on going? No, I think you get the point. Yeah, I think you get the point. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I think I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people just hearing that people have had that walk. where you're just like, what the heck is going on? Like, where's my life? Like, I need to fix this and change it. And we're all thankful that you did, because we wouldn't have Sober Black Girls Club. And so that's a great thing that you were able to do that.
Yeah, I guess this is what I wanted to end it, but I wanted to end it with like, when I was drinking, there were a lot of moments and events where things had happened and I kept on like blaming myself for them. And especially because I feel like when you're constantly drinking, when you're abusing alcohol, everything kind of seems like it's your fault, right? So like no one is perfect. And I think that like in sobriety world and like the mental health world, we kind of like all the time, we kind of like put a lot of fault and blame on people who are so upfront with like whatever they're dealing with. So it's like anyone can really be experiencing a drinking problem or abusing anything. However, if the person is not upfront with it and saying like, oh, I have been abusing, or yeah, I am experiencing addiction, then it's like, whatever, no one really cares. We don't really care until like there's a label or something, or until like the person declares something, or they're declared something or diagnosed with something by like professional. And I say this to say that I feel like when I was in addiction, I felt like everything was like my fault and everything was like just happening because of me, when in reality I did play a role in a lot of things, but I was also trying to escape a lot of my situation. I was trying to escape, I was around people that deep down inside I didn't want to be around. I was like working in a profession that deep down inside I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to work. I didn't want my life to be no offense to lawyers, but to be boring, sitting at a desk 9 to 5. Like I didn't, like that just wasn't me. And I felt like when I was drinking, it allowed me just to ignore a lot of the stuff that I just wasn't aligned with. Like, I would escape, like it was just constantly escaping. And it wasn't until I got sober that I was just like, yeah, you know what? This was my fault, but I can understand, but like, now that I am sober, I can understand why I still don't want to be your friend. Like it all makes sense now. You know what I mean? It's just like, I feel like sobriety really gave me an opportunity and a chance to really make sense a lot of my sense of a lot of my actions and choices that I made when I was drinking. Because again, you don't really know why you're making them. Like, you feel something, or you feel some type of way, or you have this thought, but it's like, well, you're always drunk, or you're always drinking, or so really, we're not gonna really put too much, thought or place too much like value into like what you're saying. And I did it to myself too, like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about, just forget it. But once I got sober, I was just like, okay, I get it now. I understand. Maybe I should, I get why I felt how I felt. All right, I'm gonna shut up now because I feel like I said what I had to say.
And you said it well.
AKA, talking about friendship and sobriety is a really touchy subject. And I feel like that's going to be a topic episode for another day. But I feel like there's such a lot of nuances to it. And I feel like it's going to be a great episode when we do talk about that. I don't know when we are, but.
Yeah, that might be the next one, because I have some things to add to that as well. We'll hold that for the next episode, though. I think we shared a ton with our audience, our new family out there, Sober Black Girls Club podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to keep coming back. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, drop a comment, let us know what you're thinking, what you like, what you didn't like. Kind of chill on what you didn't like, because she's from New York. So be mindful about that. She might side eye you and go for you. And I got a little tough interior as well. So make sure you're kind with that. If you're listening to the audio version of this, leave us a review, 5 stars, or how many stars you feel. Leave us a comment. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
I'm cracking up.
Katie, what is so funny before we sign out of here?
You're hilarious. I don't know what was just so funny when you said them. Yeah, don't leave any negative reviews. I mean, personally, I'm not gonna care, but yeah, but I personally won't care. But yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. We appreciate you guys. We're out of here. Talk to you guys next time. Peace.
Bye, y'all.